What's up, Raider Nation? It's me, Bubba the Raider. I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about stuff that's going on and stuff that has happened with the combine and update like my thoughts on the draft thus far. Sorry, it's been a little bit. Work has actually been picking up pretty good for me here. I've been subbing quite a bit, so I actually missed a lot of the combine because of it, which is bad, but it's good at the same time. So I'm going to start with free agency. I love you all. I'm going to start with that. I love everything about the Raider Nation. I love everything about each and every one of you guys. You support this team with everything you have, and that's amazing. Except for you bandwagoners, get out if you're a bandwagoner. But I'm going to teach you something here, okay? Because I'm a teacher, so this is what I'm going to teach you. Put your hands right here. Close your eyes. And breathe. It's going to be just fine. It's going to be fine. Look, I'm hearing a bunch of Raider fans say things like, Reggie's blowing it. What's Reggie doing? Freaking out. Why haven't we signed this, and this, and this? I just read, I read that Zach Brown is going to come visit, which is awesome. And then I'm reading people talk about it, and they're like, awesome, we signed Zach Brown, now all we need to do is sign Dontari Poe, Adrian Peterson, a couple corners, a free safety, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. Look, we signed Cordero Patterson. Is he going to save everything? No. He was the one person probably, except for Donta Hightower, but he was the one that I wanted the most. I didn't think he was going to be outrageously expensive, and I thought he was going to help us with our return game and give us competition for that third receiver with Seth Roberts, who I like Seth Roberts. He just drops too many balls. That's what I wanted. Here's the thing. Coming up right now, and I'm hearing a lot of people who are super pissed about losing players like Stacy McGee, Brandon Trewick, Nate Allen, Latavius Murray, Menelik Watson. We lost those guys. Okay. And here's why. When you look at for the last, I don't know how many years, 15 years, 20 years, you look at who has won the MVP award and the Defensive Player of the Year award, and you tell me, I think it's like 2 each, maybe. How many of those guys won that award with a team that didn't draft them? A team they went to in free agency. I know Peyton Manning won MVP a couple years back. It doesn't happen very often. And the reason that is because teams build through the draft. Okay? They build through the draft, and yes, every now and then you're going to have a situation like Seattle found themselves in last year where they couldn't re-sign Bruce Irvin. It just wasn't in the cards. They had too many superstars to pay for, and he left, and we reaped the benefit of that. And not every year for us can be like last year because that money we were going to lose. It wasn't going to roll over, so we had to spend it or lose it. So yeah, we signed Kelechi Osemele, who's been amazing, and we signed Bruce Irvin, who's been awesome. Like, yes, that happened. But we have contracts coming up for Derek Carr, Khalil Mack, Gabe Jackson, TJ Carey, if we want to keep him, and Justin Jelly Ellis. I know he's been rough as of late, but I mean, he's also shown signs that he can be fantastic. Would you rather have Adrian Peterson at 30 years old or be able to draft somebody and sign Gabe Jackson, who's been phenomenal? Look, we can't sign everybody. It just doesn't work that way. So even having Zach Brown, it makes me a little bit nervous because I think that he's a huge upgrade over anything we've had over the last, I don't even know how long, 10 years. I mean, I think maybe I have to watch more film on him, but Perry Riley was okay, not great. Curtis Lofton was awful. Rolando McClain, like we can go back. I liked Kirk Morrison and Thomas Howard, but um, you know he's going to be someone who can be an upgrade, but he's going to come at a cost. And it starts making me nervous because I would rather have Gabe Jackson, who's one of my favorite offensive linemen, than most of these guys. So anyway, everyone just needs to chill. Reggie's doing just fine. If we end up, we've already addressed depth with why am I drawing a blank on his name? The tackle we just signed. Shoot, why am I drawing a blank on his name? I was just talking about him. Because he played in Green Bay and he played with the Giants. Anyway, you guys know who I'm talking about. It'll come to me in like 3 minutes. You watch exactly. 6:16 is where I'm at. 9:16, I'll get it. And then we signed Cordero Patterson. So it's like those are two moves that are quiet, not too expensive, and are gonna help you build depth in the draft or in the free agency. And every now and then you might find a guy who can come in and play, but you can't bank on that. Where you bank on that is at the draft. So anyway, moving on. That's my thoughts on free agency. Let's talk a little bit about the combine. Some names that popped up on my board that that I knew some about, but I didn't look too heavily into. A lot of these guys I didn't even make a spot for in my binder that I was showing you by position. First off, okay, John Ross, freaking fast, broke the record. I think that's amazing. I don't think we need him. He's gonna go. He'll probably be off the board before we're there. So that's awesome. I don't think it's a position of need, at least not to that extent. Another guy whose name was already moving up draft boards that I was looking at, Obi Melifonwu, the safety DB out of UConn. The guy is 6'4". He ran a 4.4 flat. That's ridiculous at that size. 44-inch vert, and he was upset about that. He said he could get higher. And 141-inch broad jump, which is the second best broad jump in combine history, only behind the other Byron Jones, another UConn safety who plays for the Cowboys. So he physically was spectacular at the combine. I think he probably made himself some money. Another guy whose numbers didn't blow me away, but just hearing Mike Mayock, and I trust just about anything Mike Mayock says, not anything, but a lot of it. Larry Ogunjobi, he's a defensive lineman from Charlotte. He ran a 4.97, 26 reps on the bench, 32-inch vert. He was just gushing about this guy for a while. So that was cool. Another guy who I did hear a little bit about and I looked a little bit into is Fabian Moreau, cornerback from UCLA. He ran a 4.35. I really think we need some speed at the cornerback position. 9.16, it's Marshall Newhouse. Boom. That was who we signed. Okay, so Fabian Moreau, another guy who I didn't know much about, who popped up on my board just because of his 40 time, and I heard he did had a good workout. Like I said, I missed a lot of the combine for work related stuff and a couple family related things. Is Minnesota cornerback Jalen Myrick. He ran a 4.28, which was the second fastest combine time this year. And then another guy whose numbers didn't blow me away, but who I caught a couple glimpses of him doing the on the field workouts, and that's Taylor Moton. He's a tackle, offensive lineman from Western Michigan. Um, you look at his combine stats. I didn't even write them down. They weren't anything like awe inspiring, but his fluidity and his movements that I saw on the field workouts, um, and his form was really really good. And he was another guy that Mayock was kind of gushing about, kind of talking a lot about. So um, I liked him a lot, and he's someone who I was reading them say that he's better fit to play guard in the NFL. If we re-sign Gabe Jackson, we don't really need a guard, but what we can do is we can move Gabe Jackson back to the left side, move Kelechi Osemele to left tackle or right tackle once Penn retires, or even if this year is just not working out with Vidal Alexander, and then have him play right guard or whatever, something like that. So he may be an option there. I need to watch a lot more film. Like I said, I've been pretty busy lately, so I haven't watched a ton. But so moving forward to the next part, those are just some names that kind of popped out to me, that weren't necessarily already like on my mind, really. Like I had heard a little bit about Obi Melifonwu and thought about him in the last week before the combine. And like I said, Taylor Moton had popped up here and there, and Fabian Moreau, but not really like every day that I'm thinking about this stuff and trying to think about what I would do if I was calling the shots. These aren't names that I was hearing constantly. You might hear them a lot now that the combine's over, and it's funny how that works, but those were guys that kind of popped up on my radar. So let's talk about draft. I've been giving it a lot of thought, and a lot of people have expressed how they really agreed with my Raider mock draft and my NFL mock draft, and then how a lot of people have expressed where they really disagree, and I love all of that. And I see the merit behind everything that everyone is saying, and I've given it some thought, and I understand why and where the desire to address the cornerback position in the first round, where it comes into play. And part of me really wants that too. However, I think the biggest problem on our team, period, is this giant hole right in the middle for the first two levels, meaning the defensive line and the linebacking core. I looked at this, and you take it with a grain of salt. You take it for what it is. The Pro Football Focus grades, and it was like a rainbow for good grades on the defense. It was, or okay grades. It was like Bruce Irvin and Sean Smith and Nelson and Carl Joseph and Amerson and Khalil all had really good grades. And then there was just like really, really crappy grades right in the middle. And I think that is a huge problem. And I understand Sean Smith played like crap for most of the year. And I understand David Amerson was up and down all year. And I get that. But we are 1 year removed from both of those guys having stellar seasons. I'm pretty sure Sean Smith had a stellar season. Sean Smith was considered going into free agency one of the top corners in the league. And I think there's a lot to be said about what he physically is able to do. But I think there's a lot to be said about the way that we used him. What comes to my mind instantly is the Kansas City game, right? The first one, and even the second one, but the first one where every single play we had Sean Smith lined up like 9-10 yards off the receiver. And it wasn't like, and the reason it was is because he got burned by receivers like Brandon Cooks. Look, Brandon Cooks is a lot like, to me, like John Ross. He's super fast. You're going to get burned by those guys, especially when you're a tall, not super, super quick corner. Alex Smith isn't the kind of quarterback that's going to air it out against you. And he wasn't even on Jeremy Maclin. I don't even remember what receiver he was on most of the time. I mean, sometimes he might have been. But let him beat you that way if they're going to beat you that way. And when it came down to was they dinked and dunked so much time off the clock that it took us out of the game. And it was because Sean Smith was playing so far off, is what I thought. That's not Sean Smith's fault. That's Ken Norton. That's Jack Del Rio. So, we talk about the cornerback position. This is such a deep draft at cornerback. I'm hearing that you can get quality starters, first and second round talent in the fourth and the fifth round this year, probably. And I definitely see that. So where I understand that desire to take a corner in the first round, I think we have more pressing needs. Would you rather have Sean Smith or starting or Ben Heaney starting? Not a knock on Ben Heaney. I like Ben Heaney, but dude, he played so bad last year. Would you rather have Sean Smith starting, or would you rather have Corey James? Like, Corey James had games where he was spectacular, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. We need, and maybe Zach Brown is that guy. Maybe we bring in Zach Brown. We need, in my opinion, our biggest need is a middle linebacker. And I get, because that middle linebacker can come down and really help out the weak D-tackle spot. So where I had us taking Malik McDowell, and I still might, I don't know, I have to do an updated mock draft. I think that the biggest need is a middle linebacker, and that doesn't mean that I think that we're going to have that guy in this draft. I think Reuben Foster can be that guy. I haven't watched enough, I don't know a ton about Raekwon McMillan or Jared Davis or Zach Cunningham, but the one person who's really just flashing up is Hassan Reddick. Watching some film on him, and this guy's motor is relentless. And I get it, he played mostly D-end, and a lot of people think he's an outside linebacker, but you put him in the middle, and he might be, this was the guy I compared him to, and then I looked on NFL.com, and they had the same comparison as Ryan Shazier. I just think that wherever you put him, you're going to succeed. He's fast enough to cover. I don't know how well he can cover. I know that he used to be a DB coming into college. So Hassan Reddick out of Temple just is a guy who is just flashing up to me every day more and more. So we got the hole in the middle. Whether we bring in Zach Brown, and address, if we bring in Zach Brown, I'm fine at that point with taking a corner in the first. You can get a guy like a Dalvin Tomlinson or a Carlos Watkins or a Larry Ogunjobi or Montravius Adams, who had a really good combine from what I heard, or Caleb Brantley maybe in the second, third, fourth, whatever. But I think that the depth at the corner position is so good in this draft class that, and it's not our biggest need, that I think that we can hold off on it. With that said, like I said, if we address that hole, I'm fine with us taking 2-3 corners. I'm not pleased with how Sean Smith has played or David Amerson has played, and they're older. Which brings me to the next part. I think after our hole in the middle, which is the D tackle and the middle linebacker position, I think we need speed on the outside. Like I said, meaning cornerback. We have David Amerson and Sean Smith, who aren't burners. They're not 4.3. I think David Amerson ran a 4.4 something at his combine, but that was how, like, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. He's not the guy that's gonna burn you. And when you have a mismatch like Sean Smith covering Brandon Cooks or Tyreek Hill, You need someone who's going to be that. So that's where I think a player like Fabian Moreau or Jalen Myrick, who ran a 4.35 or a 4.28, really can help. So get some speed at the corner position. And there's some guys in this draft class that really look like they could do that. We need a running back. Goes without saying. Like I said earlier, I would much rather draft somebody than sign an Adrian Peterson for an outrageous contract and not be able to sign Gabe Jackson. I would rather have Gabe Jackson than Adrian Peterson at this point. This is kind of the league where I hate to say they're a dime a dozen, because you look at what Ezekiel Elliott did versus, Latavius Murray or whatever, behind similar offensive lines. But, when you have a committee, we have Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington, who looked real good last year. You have that committee, you can take a rookie, throw him in the mix, maybe a little bit more of a bruiser, maybe a Samaje Perine from Oklahoma. And you throw him into that mix, and I think you'll be just fine with a Gabe Jackson blocking as opposed to someone else. So we need a running back. That's our third need. And then the last need that I think, besides depth, like depth drafting for depth, we need to find, or at least think about finding, replacements for Donald Penn. We might have it. We might have Kelechi Osemele and then Vidal Alexander fit in there, or Vidal Alexander and Denver Kirkland or whatever. But you got to think about finding replacements for Donald Penn and Reggie Nelson. Hole in the middle, linebacker, defensive tackle in specific order, speed on the outside, or speed at the corner position, not necessarily, you can have a slot corner or whatever, that's really what we need. Running back, and then replacement for Penn and Nelson. I think those are huge things. Another thing to think about is what is going to happen with Aldon Smith. I think we need a couple linebackers in this draft. Even if we do sign, I wouldn't be upset if we signed Zach Brown and then drafted Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick can play anywhere. It's that versatility you really like, and I think it would help. I know we have Shalik Calhoun. I was really big on him coming out. I know he had some inconsistencies. I didn't watch a ton of his film last year, but I watched enough of him absolutely crushing Oregon, my Ducks, to know that he's a good player. So, and there's other things we might need, a D line or a D end, or there's things that we can address. But I think that those are our biggest needs, and those are positions where I think our focus needs to be. And I think that if we sign a guy like Zach Brown, it helps right there with the first one. Kind of not take it off the board, but moves it down the list a little bit. So then, maybe we can work on a corner. And, I wouldn't be upset if we took a corner in the first, or Sidney Jones, man. My heart goes out to you, but that might be a really good value pick, where he had his pro day and he tore his Achilles, and he's probably not going to play this year, or at least for a long time into this year. A little bit like Jalen Smith and his bowl game. Now he plays for the Cowboys, and you watch that guy's going to blow up. They got him in the second round. He may be something, I don't think he'll fall all the way to us in the second round, but it may be something where we can get a really good, Mayock, I believe it was Mayock, has him as his number one corner in this draft class. So a really good corner at a position like in the second round. So could you imagine if we took a Hassan Reddick, and then we took a Sidney Jones, who, sure, he might not be able to play right away, but in the future he'll be able to, and then we address either the running back or the D tackle position, and then we turn around and we take a Jalen Myrick, who ran a 4.28 and addresses that speed. Like, that's how you build. That's how you build. You find best player available. Hassan Reddick can come in, play D end if we need him to. He can play outside linebacker. He can play inside linebacker. You know, we have a corner for the future who's going to be better than Sean Smith and David Amerson probably. We address, you know, maybe Larry Ogunjobi or Montrevious Adams or whatever to help plug up the middle, or maybe we do sign a Don Terry Poe. You know, I don't think we should, just for the simple fact of how much he's going to cost. But you know, and then we go on to running back. Maybe we take a Wayne Gallman or a Brian Hill or a Samaje Perine or whatever else. So there's just a lot of options, and I think that this is a good enough draft to where we can really address all of them. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll be coming to you guys more with more draft videos. And I'm getting excited as we're drawing closer. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. I encourage all conversation. Tell your friends to come check me out. Tell your family to come check me out. Like this video if you like it. You can dislike it if you disliked it. I think you can dislike on YouTube. Let me know what you think, good, bad, or otherwise. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And what is it? Oh yeah, just win, baby.